If she had only been ugly.
Welcome to Live from the Laugh Factory, featuring Dom Irrera with special guest star Tom Dreesen. Tom, good to see you, brother.
It's a return engagement.
Well, you were called back by popular demand, my friend, by your daughter calling us up. Can you put my dad on?
Please put my dad back on. You know what an old vaudevillian told me many years ago, before you were born, when I first started in show business, he said, don't tell me about all the shows you've been on. Tell me about all the places that asked you back. I said, oh, that's a good point.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Well, Tom, I got to say something about yesterday because I loved it. I was having a long day flying from Rochester through Chicago to L.A., and I might have had to stay over in Chicago. And Tom said to me, as only he could say in a semi-gangster kind of way, anything you need in Chicago, you let me know. I need some arches for my feet. But I mean, I love the fact that, you're one of those guys that can walk right in the middle. You know the highest guys in cops and politicians, and some,
Cops and the robbers.
Seedy guys.
Well, all the years, 45 years in show business, how you and I both will end up knowing a lot of people from all aspects is from the shows we do.
Yeah, but how do you manage to balance it?
It was very difficult. We do shows, you do charities, and I've done it for all the police in Chicago. I've done 20 police shows or more in the last 5 years, and especially for the 100 Club. Or
you got a lot of those cards?
Yeah, well, yeah, all of them. So
if you get stopped in Chicago, they apologize for stopping you.
Yeah.
Sorry, man, I didn't know it was you.
But I mean, my point is when you're talking about those guys, that many years ago, there was an Italian charity in Chicago, and they had a golf tournament, and they would ask me to come.
It's called the Mafia.
It was. They weren't called, but they were. Yeah, they were called.
Sons of Italy or what?
Yes, whatever. No. It was Unico was the charity. But my point of that is that all these Italian guys, there coming to be 200 Italian guys, and 185 were legitimate, honest businessmen. Right. But there's always a couple of those guys around. We're both Italian, so you know what I'm talking about. But so you would do shows, and you would meet those guys. Also, when I first started on show business, those guys owned a lot of clubs in Chicago. Yeah. So you would do shows, and so did you know them? Yeah, you knew them. Were you connected to them? No, but I always treated everybody with respect, and but that isn't what I meant. You called me from O'Hare Airport and said the show might be late, Tom. Instead of taping it at a certain time, we're going to do it an hour later. And I said, if you're stuck in Chicago, you need anything.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm the restaurant owners.
I just love your connections there, though. It's a pretty big town to own.
I love Chicago.
Yeah, of course.
They treat me so good.
They named a street Philly is with me.
Yeah, of course. They named a street after me.
And to Atlantic City. Do you have an ocean? You don't have an ocean. You got a lake.
No, sure. I was going to say, in Chicago, they named a street after me, they named a sandwich after me, and they named a suite at the Ambassador East after me. So anything that begins with an S. So I want to quit right now before they name some shit after me.
They really? You were up a street? Tom Dreesen Street?
Yeah.
That's fucking cool.
Yeah, back where I was born and raised, yeah. I sold newspapers on that corner. And back in 1992, they called me back and they named a street there after me, and my family all came. It was really a fun day.
I was watching you last two Saturdays ago, and I don't want to turn it into the Sammy Maudlin show, but you had an absolutely perfect set where not one word was wasted. Do you remember that set? Remember this? They gave you like a standing ovation, after the set. It was like really incredible. But for in the middle of the show, you followed Sunda, and Sunda did her 2-3 hour warm up. Well, get to the Korean nail ladies. Come on, get to the Korean nail ladies.
It's a closer, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I do remember, because we work together a lot on these things, and either you're on in front of me or I'm after you, or vice versa. I mean, we did, but it was an incredibly great crowd then. And there are those nights as a stand-up comedian that you go, oh my God, I wish I could take this audience home, because they were on to they get caught up in your rhythm, and they were with you all the way, It was
I had to acknowledge it, because I'm not going to go up there and act like that didn't happen. Because I said, I said something like, what am I supposed to do? I follow Tom, I'm supposed to fly around the room? You know what I mean? It's like, because I can't say, hey, you're having a good time. I just saw them having a good time. Now it's up to me to follow that,
Well, an old pro, Billy Eckstine, when I toured with Sammy Davis many years ago, a couple times he'd take Billy Eckstine with him on the road, and it would be me, then Billy Eckstine, then intermission, and then Sammy Davis Jr. at these big theaters. And so every night, Billy Eckstine would come out, this old pro, this guy who's been in show business 100 years.
What did he play? He was a musician, right?
Billy Eckstine was a singer, Mr. B.
Oh, he was a singer?
Oh, he was one of the great singers of his time, you know. In fact, Sammy used to talk about when he was a little boy, he'd go to the Apollo Theater.
Oh, he was older than Sammy?
Oh, way older than Sammy, yeah.
Oh, okay, because I know the name.
I shouldn't say way older, but he was, Billy Eckstine, Sammy said he would sit up in the balcony of the Apollo Theater and watch Billy Eckstine sing and how charming he was. So later years, when Sammy's a big star and Billy needed some breaks, Sammy would take him on the road. But my point of that is that every night, Billy Eckstine, I would do my stand-up comedy, and Billy Eckstine would come out, and the first thing he'd say is, wasn't that young comedian marvelous? Shouldn't we let's give that Tom Dreesen.
That's nice.
But here's my point, though. And he would say, Tom Dreesen, nice round of applause. Now, after about a week, we're having dinner one night, and I said, by the way, Mr. B, they call him. I said, Mr. B, I want to thank you. He said, for what? I said, well, those nice things you say about me every night. He said, let me tell you something, boy. He said, you're out, anytime you follow another entertainer, he's done 20, 25 minutes, or she's done 20 in front of you. He said, you don't act like no one's been there. You walk up, and what I'm doing, I'm dismissing your aura. I'm getting you out of there.
Oh.
Wasn't he wonderful? In other words, this is my stage now.
Right.
Let's give him another nice. He said, I'm dismissing your aura.
God, I hate Billy Eckstine.
No, but I thought that was very smart.
Yeah.
I don't ever, and I know you don't either, I don't ever go on a stage after another comedian without saying, how about, you know, Dom Irrera, how about whoever was in front of you? You can't act like they weren't there, you know.
No, unless it's somebody that really sucks. Then you go, how about? Then the inflection changes. Oh, sorry about.
Oh, yeah.
So you parked at Greenblatt's?
Yes. We're
Funny.
going to get towed.
We have a deli next door, Greenblatt's, we all go to, and it says no parking, absolutely no parking, no laugh track, tow away. They never towed one fucking car, ever. And the guys that work there said they never tow anybody.
Well, if they ever even tried, as much money as I spent in that place in all these years working at the Laugh Factory and going over to next door, and you and I both eat over there a lot,
Yeah.
you know, I would really, really be pissed.
Did they know it's yours, though?
I don't know. You know, I don't know.
Yeah,
that.
you hope so.
Yeah.
You would hope they would check in here first. But I laughed when I saw you parking there because I'm parked at the closest possible spot to the door.
Oh, yeah?
And that's a nice Mercedes you got.
Thank you. Yeah,
I got the coupe. I got a big fucking Lexus at home that I can't kill. And I don't need two big cars, you know.
Yeah.
But anyway, let's get back. You know what? When you were saying Sammy Davis Jr., he was the guy I used as an example when I started out. They go, so you're headlining, huh? To me? You know, I'm not headlining. I'm not a headliner. Sammy Davis Jr. is a headliner with all that fucking talent.
Yeah.
Me, I'm the closing act. That's what I am.
Yeah.
I wouldn't consider it headline. Now, maybe, you know, if you'd headline in like the big room at the Tropicana, Atlantic City, that's headline.
That's headline. Well, the comedy clubs started that before comedy clubs, and I was a comedian before there were comedy clubs. A headliner was what you just said, a headliner. Now, a co-headliner was somebody who shared the bill with you and was 50% of the draw, you and he together, or you and she together, filled the room. An opening act was, you know, an opening act. But
Gary Shanley, somebody without talent. Kidding.
I won't argue with. There was a difference. A headliner was somebody who filled the room, put asses in the seats.
Oh yeah, you got to
sold
sell
the place
tickets.
out. Yeah, absolutely.
That's what when kids ask me, like a guy starting out, how do I headline? I go, you don't. They do it.
Yeah.
They ask you to. You don't do it. There's nobody you call, like the president of show business. You know, my father's a friend of him. Maybe he'll help me out.
Yeah.
You know, you headline because you could sell tickets.
Yeah, you sell tickets, or if it's one of those, you are the act that is going to be the coup de grace. You know, if there's 3 or 4 acts on the bill, they know that you're the one that's going to be the strongest of the group.
You better be because you're getting paid a lot more.
Yeah, well, supposedly, yeah. I mean, in some cases, yeah.
Were you like a monkey Italian guy that you always had to get laid every day?
No, I was. By the way, it was going through my veins, you know. But I shouldn't say when I was 21. You're talking about?
Yeah.
I was married. See, I get married.
See, you grew up fast.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like an idiot at 21. Not that I'm not an idiot now, but at 21, I was, yeah. I remember sneaking girls into the dorms. I remember getting dressed up with somebody put rollers in my hair and with a robe like in Animal House or one of those things, sneaking in the girls' dorms.
Oh, wow.
We were such pigs. We would have sex, me and my girlfriend. real loud, and her roommate's like 3 feet away, acting like she's sleeping. such low class white trash pigs.
Well, I was in a service 4 years. I came out of the service.
What were you in?
Married. I was in the Navy for 4 years, and then I was in a Marine Corps unit called NEGDF. I served with the Marine Corps 9 months, Naval Emergency Ground Defense Force. And by the way, I put a ship out of commission, an aircraft carrier, in your hometown in Philadelphia. So I used to hang around Broad and Porter. There was a bar called Sharky's Bar in South Philly I used to hang out in.
Wow. So yeah, the Navy Yard's right down there.
Yeah. I was on an aircraft carrier called the USS Tarawa. I was on another aircraft carrier called the USS Essex. And then I served.
Well, I went to Biscayne College in Miami, Florida. We had clam bakes during the Vietnam.
That's as close as you got to the ocean.
That's as close as I got. No, I couldn't go in. I actually had to register as a total pussy. That was why I couldn't go in the Army. My brothers were Marines, and my brother just retired yesterday. He was almost a general. I wanted him to be a general just to have a General Irrera.
Oh, my God, yeah.
The highest colonel you can get.
Oh, that's fantastic.
But that son of a bitch never made it to general.
Those 4 years in the service were the best 4 years of my life. I had 8. No, they really were. I had 8 brothers.
You have a pretty good life right now.
Well, I got a great life now. But I mean, those 4 years changed me around from where I was going.
Well, sure.
I went in the day I was 17, and I came out when I was 21. I had 8 brothers and sisters. We lived in a shack. 5 of us slept in one bed.
Really?
We had no bathtub, no shower, no hot water. We lived in a rat-infested, roach-infested shack. Yeah, we were poor, raggedy. I had holes in my shoes as big around as your coffee cup my whole childhood. I dropped out of high school my sophomore year at age 16. I set pins in bowling alleys late at night and was getting in trouble with the law, running with some real bad guys, real tough guys. They were fighting every 20 minutes. One of them was in a brawl somewhere. But when I was 17, a judge helped me get in the Navy, and it turned me around. My core values and everything. And
were you a little bit of a hood?
Well, yeah, in those days I was. I'm not proud to say that, but I was.
It's a good story, though, once you lived through it.
I was so misguided. You know, I didn't have a strong father, that would take me.
Most of us haven't.
Yeah.
Most of the comedians haven't.
By the way, you know, that's an interesting thing. I'm getting way off the subject of what we were talking about.
Don't worry about it.
They once asked me to do an article in a magazine to try to find out what every stand-up comedian might have in common. And I talked from Don Rickles to David Letterman to George Miller to Johnny Dark to every comedian I knew and asked the same question. Did your father ever say to you, I love you, hug you and say I love you? I couldn't get, everyone, some of them said I didn't know who my father was, George Miller. Others said, no, my father wasn't that kind of guy. I never could find one that the father, I found one guy, he said, my father loved me. I said, did he hug you and say I love you? He said, no, he didn't hug me, but I said, did he ever say to you, I love you? He said, no, but I knew he loved me. I said, that's not my point.
He didn't say it. Well, my father not only he told me he hated me, but he also hated you. He's a very hateful man. He hated my friends.
Now, you might do this survey with bartenders and find out the same thing, that their fathers are, but I'm saying...
No, I think there's a correlation more with comedians.
With comedians, I wonder if that's the case. Maybe some nights when you're out there and getting all that laughs, maybe it's 200 fathers saying, hey, I love you, I'm proud of you, kid, I'm proud of what you do. And I'll digress.
My father's jealous of me. Actually, it's a very sad predicament because I've heard he brags about me to people. It's come back to me, but he's jealous. Like he tries to dismiss what we do, like as not really a job.
It's not a job. I understand. That.
But he said he goes, that's a very hard thing to do. It's just to make it as a stand-up comic. He says, Tony Galento. I go, no, I don't know Tony Galento. Brings up this guy. He goes, he hit Jackie Gleason because Jackie Gleason said something wise ass to him. I'm like, what the fuck does that do with me, you fucking idiot? Well, he's the one that tried to convince me not to drink water when I was overheated. He was trying to kill me. He says, don't give in to yourself. Like you're playing ball at 100 degrees.
Yeah.
And don't drink water. That's what the Marines, you're out of your fucking mind.
Yeah, he was one of those tough guys. Well, Frank Sinatra told me his father told him the same thing about singing. You don't want to do that. But see, that's Italian. The old
right.
Italian.
Frank Sinatra's father was right. He's never going to make it.
Yeah, old Italians, they learn a craft, learn how to make some spoons, or how to, but that's what all comedians put up with. But I wonder sometimes if maybe that like I say, the 200 fathers out there when you're getting all that laughs, because how much a father's approval, and that's why I love my kids and I tell them all the time that I love them. But I remember I played basketball, and when I was a kid growing up. And in grade school, I scored 28 points, and we went into the final game. And my sister went home, and she's telling my mom and dad, and it was the talk of the school. So we're playing for the championship game, and my father had never ever seen me play any sport. He drank. He went to the bars, and he partied all the time. So my mom forced him to come. She went and got him out of a bar, and they came. I scored 2 points the whole game. We got beat by like 32 points. We got ran out of the gym. But in the third quarter, I threw up probably a 35-footer in those days, a gunshot, and it went in. And the second that ball went through the net, I looked up in the stands to see if he was watching, and he was. And he had a big grin on his face. And if I live to be 100 years old, I'll never forget that grin on his face. So that's how important a father's approval must be,
Yeah, well, I remember looking to see if he saw me make a catch or whatever,
Yeah, I mean, we joke about it and all that stuff, but my charity in Chicago is the Illinois Fatherhood Initiative, and the whole purpose is to promote fatherhood because that's what's wrong with our society today. Lack of fathers in the home. When I was growing up in my neighborhood, 4% of the children being born were being born fatherless, without a father in the home.
Oh, yeah.
Today, 75%, where I grew up at, are children being born without a father.
Well, do you ever notice that when they introduce a basketball player, his mother never has the same name?
Yeah.
know?
Well, I mean, again, and when
they introduce guys for an award or something, there's mothers standing there.
Yeah.
That's, I know I grew up, as you did, I think, in a predominantly black neighborhood, and I taught in a black neighborhood, and the kids always thought the guy was their uncle. He ain't your uncle. He's just popping your mom. I got news for you.
Well, that's the tragedy. Let me tell you why there's so much crime in Chicago, in the south side of Chicago. When I was growing up in a predominantly black neighborhood, in Chicago, if there was a young kid roaming the streets in an Italian neighborhood, snatching women's purses and knocking people over the head, the Italian men of that community went out and got him and said, "Come here, boy. You don't pull that crap in our neighborhood." If it was in an Irish neighborhood, a Polish neighborhood, if there was a Polish kid roaming the streets, the Polish men of that community went out and got him. In the black neighborhood where I grew up
Grab him by that bowling shirt.
Yeah, but there you go. The black guys in my neighborhood, they would go out and get that punk. They wouldn't let him get away with that.
Right.
The men of that community policed that community. They need the cops to come
that's
in
the way
but
Little
today,
Italy is in New York.
Yeah, well, all right. But today, 7 out of every 10 black children being born are being born without a father. 5 out of every Latino, and 3 out of every 10 white kids are being born without a father in the home. 77% of all teenage crimes are created by fatherless teenagers. That's a fact. 77% of all crimes are created by fatherless teenagers. This year in Detroit, 75% of the children being born are being born fatherless. We're creating a nation full of criminals, and no one will talk about it because they haven't got the guts. It's the politically correct police. You can't say that. You can't say that. It's bullshit. I can say that.
You can say whatever you want on this podcast, Tom.
That's right. The first
because we're going to edit the shit out of it after you get out of here.
But that's my charity. Every comedian has their own charities, but that's not
That's
mine.
a good cause because it affected your own life, so you decided to
try
and help out.
How important a father is in the home. That's so important to promote fatherhood,
When I was a kid, I thought the only people that had fathers were on television. Really, because that's all I saw was like those families.
Yeah.
And
that's a tragedy.
And even poor Opie didn't have a mom. He had that nagging bitch, Aunt B, that fucking whore. I tell you, Tom, one shot.
One of the great stories of show business is Ronnie Howard. Opie on
oh my God.
Well, because first of all, I've only known of, and I only knew one. Ronnie, I knew. Ronnie Howard and I used to play softball against each other. He played for Happy Days, but Ronnie Howard's a great guy. But he's the only child.
He still looks
star.
like a giant Opie, though.
But nonetheless, he's a very successful,
and he gets his crazy-looking brother and everything.
A well-balanced guy. Now, how many child stars do you know? He's the only child star I've ever known that came out of, and he was a huge star. And the other was Shirley Temple, but I didn't know her. But she grew up to be a very well-balanced human being.
And all that. Danny Bonaducci, he's out there.
Yeah.
God bless him. But I mean, he's always like getting in fights, lifting weights, crazy.
And he would admit that being a child star probably affected him a great deal because you're growing up and everybody wants to be your friend, and then one day no one wants to be your friend.
Jimmy Walker had an interesting career because he was so big at one time, and one thing he got big on was Dynamite, and then Jimmy, and I just talked to him today because of David Brenner passing away, and he wouldn't do it. He wouldn't do the one thing that made him, and I can't walk in his shoes. I don't know what it's like to have one thing making you famous,
I know my idea. Well, we talked about this the last time I did the show with you, because we talked about a hook. If you're lucky in comedy, you find a hook. When you say, I get no respect, we go, oh, Rodney. If you say, the devil made me do it, oh, that was Flip.
Never had a dinner.
Never had a dinner, red buttons. So if you're lucky and you find a hook, and usually you can't create it, it just happens.
See, mine was too long. My hook was, I can't believe that actually happened to me again today. Oh boy. That's too long a hook. You know?
Going back to something you said earlier, David Brenner was one of the most prolific comedians that I ever met. A South
You were
Philly
one of the
guy.
most. What about you? I know he was, but I mean, I was thinking about you on the way over here. How many Tonight shows did you write? How did you do that?
Well,
How the fuck did you do it?
I did 61 appearances on the Tonight Show, but
How do you get that material?
necessity is the mother of invention. You know what
Oh, that's the mother of. I was wondering who.
Let me tell you what I used to do. Seriously, you talk. I don't. When somebody asked me on a show one time, they said, "Are you a comedian who writes, or are you a writer who's a comedian?" I said, "That might be the best question someone's ever asked me." I'm a comedian.
I think
who
you're
writes,
a comedian, right?
Because I love stand-up comedy. I don't enjoy writing. It's a job, as you know. But what I used to do to force myself to write, I had such an entree on the Tonight Show in those days that I could call them and tell them. I mean, not when I first time I'd like everybody else, I waited in line and auditioned, but when I got...
Well, you must have had carte blanche on that show.
I did. And so what I would do, I would call them and say,
Pardon my French.
I'm available March 18th. And say that was 4 weeks away. They'd say, okay, Tom, you're on. I don't have the first joke written.
Right, that's
now,
good, though. But
I
that
start to
puts the
panic.
pressure on you.
You know what I mean? Then I'd take that tape recorder and I'd go to 2 or 3 comedy clubs and writing.
Where were you going? What clubs in those days?
In those days, I'd go to, well, I started at the Comedy Store, but then I'd go to the Improv and the Laugh Factory here. I would just
He was open already?
Yeah, he opened up right after the strike in 1979. Jamie opened up the Laugh Factory. So I would just keep, you know.
We didn't touch on the strike last time, did we?
I don't think we did, no.
Okay.
But
I think you're going to have to come back for another episode, too.
Oh, yeah, okay. But anyhow, that's what I would force myself to say, I've got to have this material ready in 3 or 4 weeks. And then all of a sudden, I would start writing everything everybody said. I'd have my parents' pencil paper, you know.
Let me just explain something to the audience. The reason, when you see these guys doing a monologue every night, it's because they're reading something other writers wrote. That's not us. We actually have to write this shit. It's fucking hard.
Yeah. And it is. And you know, the best thing you can do is just try to stay true to what you think is funny, not what's trendy or whatever. You know, just your own sense of humor, your own. You know. Anyhow,
amazing how you live it though. Because yesterday, I was getting TCA, and I asked the woman if she could examine me as a
TSA.
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 What did I say?
Touching sensitive areas.
Yeah,
No,
right.
TSA is TCA. You said
TSA. And I was thinking of your joke. Well, you know, because it's so subtle, but that feels good. Or whatever you're doing, like
I do a routine.
But that
I do a
lives
routine about
with
going
us.
through TSA. You know how that you know. And I said, you know, you can my routine. One of the bits I do is that you can risk the machine going and risk radiation, or you can be patted down and find out at this stage of my life that I get aroused when a man touches me there also. You know.
He's so gentle. His hands are so soft. I always think of how we live each other's bits. So you get to a position sometimes, and like I have a bit about fresh pepper, and people tell me every time that, you know, fresh pepper, the guy, it's all he does is fresh pepper.
Yeah.
And they say when I'm at dinner, and I can't keep a straight face because do we know that the guy's going to go fresh pepper?
Well, you know, you never know how your material affects people, and I don't know if you and I covered this, but many years ago, I had a silly joke that I wrote that about in my neighborhood that they use the word that no one uses, amo, A-H-M-O. I'm going to kick your old butt.
Oh,
you know, I'm going to kick your ass. You know, amo. Now, I did it on the Tonight Show. I did it on Dinah Shore. I did it on Soul Train. You know, I'm the only white comedian ever to do Soul Train. I used to do Soul Train a couple times. So anyhow, a simple joke. I did it on the Dean Martin roast one night. They were roasting Dan Haggerty, who had a show called, not Gentle Ben, what was the name of that show?
I think it was Gentle Ben, wasn't it?
No, Dan Haggerty had it, anyhow.
I remember the name.
Yeah, he was Grizzly Adams.
Oh, we knew it was a bear.
Yeah, it was something like that. So the Dean, I roasted, I was on the Dean Martin roast, we roasted George Burns.
That's cool, I never knew you did that.
Yeah, I did. I also roasted Dan Haggerty. But one of the jokes I did about, he was from the country, and Bob, I'm from the city, and then we had a word. I did AMO, AHMO. I'm gonna kick your butt. That's now. It was a throwaway joke. Unbeknownst to me, a coach from Texas in 1977 saw that roast, and his team was about to play for the football championship of,
wasn't Darrell Royal.
Texas. No, it wasn't Darrell Royal. It was high school, Wiley, Texas. And this coach, his name is Schaefer, Coach Schaefer. And he sees the dean, he's about to go take his team to practice on Monday to play for the championship of the state of Texas, high school football. And he can't beat him. He knows his team can't beat, the other team was running people out by 50 points. And he saw me do that joke, and he said, that's my mantra. He went and he talked to the football player, I'm gonna kick your butt. When you line up, they broke huddle, they'd go, AHMO.
Wow.
Now, they go on and win the state championship. After that, now, I didn't know this at the time. About 6 months ago, a woman wrote me a letter. The school has AHMO, AMO on the football jerseys. They have AMO bracelets. They have they have AMO banners. They run in, the cheerleaders run with AHMO, AMO.
Oh, that's
the fans
great.
cheer when they're winning or losing. AMO, AMO. Now, this woman writes me a letter because the coach had retired, and he came back to the school to teach a little class, and one of the students walked up with a camera and everything, said, by the way, you're the creator of the word AMO, and that's now our mantra. It's been our chant. What did you? He said, well, I watched this, and Tom Dreesen on the Dean Martin roast, and a woman in that school had gone to my high school back in Illinois, and I was a teacher in Texas. She said, well, she writes me a letter.
Wow.
Now, I take that film clip on the David Letterman show, and showed how, now I'm going down there in the fall to their homecoming game, and I'm going to do a show down there at the school in their theater, and I'm going to, talk to the students. And it came from, like you're saying your black pepper joke, it came from a silly joke, AMO.
Yeah.
You'd have thought, like, a win run for the Gipper might inspire a football team, but not AMO,
I have a joke that's not even a joke that lasted with me more than anything about the Italian guys from South Philly. Little Petey, Big Petey, Regular Petey, Joey Bag of Donuts, Jimmy the Woman. And it's just a list of guys.
Yeah.
But the list gets laughs.
Oh, yeah, of course.
You know.
But but Italians always had to have nicknames. Everybody in the neighborhood,
Yeah.
Italian guys, you would say, in the neighborhood, you'd say, hey, did you hear about, Joey Calzone? He died. No, I didn't know him.
Calzone passed away.
Yeah, they say Joey from the neighborhood. No, I didn't know. What are you talking about? Joey Calzone from the, you didn't know Joey?
Yeah.
He's not, I didn't know him. Teets died? I went to grade school with him. He was best man at my wedding. Because they go by the nickname.
Yeah, we definitely had that. There was always something, even in the family.
Yeah.
They used to call my uncle the Moose because he had a small head and he looked like a moose without antlers. And they used to call my other uncle Beans because he had big nipples. Big pointy nipples, and he'd wear like bandline shirts. It'd be so disgusting.
Most of the time when Italians give you a nickname, it isn't complimentary.
No.
You know what I mean? When they have a nickname for you.
Well, Goodfellas covered that a lot. Who was it? Tony 2 times or something? Remember? Guy said everything double.
Tommy.
Was it?
Yeah.
Was that Goodfellas?
Or was it Bronx Tale?
Bronx Tale.
I think it was a Bronx.
Because like a lot of them blend together for me.
Yeah.
Other than the Raging Bull and of course the Godfather, but a lot of those Italian things, it's like it's always like, are you talking to me? You talking to me or not? Well, he was an Italian. Well, I don't know what the fuck he was, but I mean the Joey Pesci's famous scene. And am I here for your amusement?
And Goodfellas. He's talking to Ray Liotta. Yeah, talking to Ray Liotta. Yeah. What do you mean I'm funny? You mean like I'm funny looking? Or,
Right.
Yeah. It was a real dangerous scene,
Now, speaking of these shows, not to lament a guy who I thought was a great actor, your friend Dennis Farina.
Yeah.
I appreciated that. I didn't even know he knew my act.
Oh, he
I
loves
remember
him.
being upstairs and you telling me that.
Oh, yeah, but he also, one time at the Improv, Dennis and I were having dinner there, and you were on, and we went in the back and he cracked up. He thought you were hysterical,
Well, that's a compliment from a guy. He's a guy that was also, he was a cop, and he could play a great hood.
Yeah.
He could play a great killer. He was a good actor.
He was a real good actor. Dennis Farina was in Midnight Run. He was in, first of all, he had his own series, Crime Story, but he did a lot of other movies. He was just a real Chicago guy. He grew up in the streets of Chicago, a tough neighborhood. He went into service, came out of service, joined the police department, was a cop for like 10 years, and then became an undercover cop, burglary division, Area 6.
Yeah.
And it was a tough guy.
What a life he had.
Yeah,
I mean,
and then he became an actor,
Yeah.
and a renowned actor,
Amazing, yeah.
And then he died about 6 months ago, and it breaks my heart because he was like a brother to me, and we got together all the time.
I know you guys are close. I don't mean to bum you out, but I know that he's somebody I wanted to mention on the show.
Yeah, he was.
Because I respected his work, and like the fact that he liked my act was thrilling to me.
Well, and in the Academy Awards this year, of course, whenever somebody dies, they usually flash a picture. They didn't even flash a picture of him on the screen.
Really?
Yeah. Which it's typical of them. They'll let that show go on an hour and a half overtime, but to flash someone's picture on the screen would have taken a second or 2 seconds, and they say, well, we didn't have enough time, and 30 people died last year. You don't have enough time.
Well, I mean, the Academy Awards, first of all, you can buy an Academy Award.
Yeah.
If you put enough money into it, enough energy, publicity, and everything. So it's a stupid award anyway. And, there's not a more self-congratulating business than ours.
I know.
All they do is congratulate each other for shit that is fun to do.
Yeah.
Oh, he worked so hard. He worked so hard, my ass. Fucking acted.
Exactly.
Oh, you don't know what it's like, his trailer. He has to walk all the way to his trailer.
That was the other fortunate thing for me. The 4 years being in the service, coming out of the service, I'm married. As I came out of the service, I'm wheeling concrete. I'm cleaning sewers. I'm working 12, 14 hours a day wheeling. I'm a skinny little shit, and I'm wheeling concrete.
What's that
for
mean?
Sidewalks and basements. We'd pour sidewalks and basements, and
God.
But no,
My grandfather did that.
Yeah, work till work till like 7, 8 at night. I know what hard work is. Stand-up comedy is not hard work. It's heartbreaking, but it's not hard work. And
it's hard to
acting.
get into, but it's not. I mean, I bet you your pulse goes down when you're on stage. I bet my blood pressure goes down when I'm on stage. You couldn't get much more comfortable. I mean, the fuck you gonna do? Lay down in a hammock?
But the irony of that is that they did a survey around the world many years ago of the 10 fears of man. They did it for 8 years.
Oh yeah,
and death was fourth, pain was second, getting up in front of an audience was the number one fear of mankind around the world.
Yeah, that's because they have no acts, Tom. We have an act.
Well, but
right.
So if you can get up, I tell young comedians all the time, if you can get up in front of an audience and you're a house painter or a lawyer or a doctor or whatever, and you can talk for 1 hour about your profession, you're in less than 1% of the population of the world. But if you can get up and make people laugh for an hour, you're in less than 1/1,000,000th of 1% of the population of the world.
Yeah.
You know how unique you are. And that's why I tell young comedians, don't tarnish that. Don't ruin that. Don't do drugs and destroy this great gift you have. You have a gift to go out and make other people laugh and make them feel better for having had your service, and you're going to tarnish that? Yeah. Billions of people on this planet can't do what you can do.
I went into one of those, the USA hot dog, I think, at O'Hare, is that what it's called? The hot dog, one of the hot dog places, but it's like a restaurant, not just a cart. And I made the girl laugh. She was a really pretty black girl. And I made her laugh really hard, and I heard her going, man, that man was funny. When I walked out, I was thinking, if you only knew, kid, that's what I do.
Well, even that, if you can that's the corniest cliches in the world about making one person laugh. But truthfully, if you make one person laugh every day, Emerson said, you live the good life if you leave this planet better than you found it. If you leave this world better than you found it.
I'm going to leave it best. When I got here, it was a mess. So I'm going to leave it nice and neat. Everything folded.
We got the greatest profession. Stand-up comedy is the greatest profession, bar none, on the planet. We make a living making people laugh. Are you kidding me?
I know. That's what I remember telling Cher that when I used to open for her. I said, you got like a truck just for your wig ladies.
Yeah.
I got, you know what? I have 3 dry clean shirts.
That's it.
And clean socks. It's like, you walk with that, and they have all this shit.
And I could go to a gig, and did many times, and earlier in my career, they'd say, hey, listen, we got a problem, man. The sound went out. I said, I'll talk louder. They said, yeah, but here's the other thing, too. The light system, give me a flashlight. I don't care. I can make it work. The singer, the drummer is not here, we're dead. Right. The singers have all kinds of problems. Actors have to go into all their bullshit. But stand-up comedy is just the greatest profession on the planet.
It is a lot of fun.
The hardest part about stand-up is the travel, as everybody will tell you.
Exactly. Like days like yesterday, for me, that's my work. The stand-up, it's on me. If they want to come over to my house, I'll do stand-up for free.
I agree.
It's like, that's it.
Traveling in and out of airplanes.
Cracks, people have miserable fucking lives, and they act like my life is steak. Like this guy says to me, he was a really good actor at one time, years ago, and now he's selling fish, right? Weighs fish, sells fish. He goes, I don't know how you do it. You do. That's really tough. And I felt like going, but you sell fish.
That's tough.
You sell fish. That's tough. You sell fish. You weigh fish. You have fish on your hands all the time.
There's a real good actress. Her name is Tessa Ferrara, and Tessa works at a place called Fab's, and a restaurant I go to. And then I went to see her in the play. Now she just came off of Grey's Anatomy. She's doing good now. She's a real good actress. But at that time, she was waiting tables, and she was in a play called Profile. So I went to see her, and she was outstanding. It was drama and comedy and all these different emotions, and she got standing ovation at the end of the play and everything. And the next day, I'm in the restaurant, and I'm talking to a buddy of mine, and she said, "Did you want the linguine and clam sauce with the white sauce?" And I looked and I said, "This is our business." Last night, I saw her get 3 curtain calls.
Wow.
Tonight, she's saying, "Did you want the linguine and clam sauce?" But that's our business.
Well, this guy was like a really good actor, and I didn't want to bring up acting with him because I don't want to hurt his feelings. I really like the guy.
Yeah.
And he's really talented. But, as you know, it's only one of the many ingredients. And what people don't realize they're talented is, there's people at Northwestern, there's people at UCLA that are also talented.
Yeah.
But when you get into, we were in Philly, and like he was kind of the star of the group. And I'm not saying, who knows what would have happened. But for some reason, it didn't work out in acting for him. But,
This is,
I know he's going to watch this and get mad at me. I love you, man. It's just that it was just made me laugh because he sells fish.
Yeah.
I said, worried about my life.
The Bertram Russell once said, there are people in show business who become stars, major stars, simply because they didn't have sense enough to quit when they should have. And that's my story. That's your story. It's all of our stories. I should have quit. There were so many reasons to quit. I had no money. I had a wife and 3 kids. The day I went in show business,
you grew up fast, man.
I had a wife and 3 kids the day I went into show business.
Yeah, that's tough. That's balls.
But I knew this is what I wanted to do. But I mean, it was tough. No money coming in, and there was times I should have quit. My wife left me 3 times. She said, "I've had it. This is your dream. It's not mine." I mean, there was a lot of reasons.
Your dream is my nightmare.
Yeah, it's a good line.
I mean, I had nothing. I had basketball in one hand and my dick in the other hand. Literally. I mean, I remember we eating 1 slice of pizza and a can of soup a day.
Yeah.
Like, how do you stay so thin? I go, no problem with me. I can't eat. I don't have any money.
That was me. I used to hitchhike up and down Sunset Boulevard. I lived on $1 a day. Kentucky Colonel had a thing called corn and cluck for under $1. And I'd go in, there was 2 pieces of chicken, some coleslaw, mashed potatoes, and like a biscuit. And I'd go in there every day in the evening, and I'd eat was corn and cluck for under $1. That's how I survived, But, but that's, everybody's got stories.
So I never asked you this. Where did Sinatra see you?
He actually, how it came about, my B being glib at the right time, I was appearing in Lake Tahoe with Smokey Robinson at Caesars, and Frank was appearing next door at Harris. We toured. We're the best of buddies. We toured for years together, and still do once in a while.
Can I tell you a quick Smokey story?
Sure.
Real quick. On Southwest Airline, got to get my bag, and not that tall, and he's much taller than me, and I hear, "Here, let me get that for you." And I go, Smokey Robinson getting my bag. And I just didn't know what to say. Hey, I'm a friend of Finest Henderson. Oh, how's Finest? I'm just throwing out a word.
Yeah.
Nice to see you.
Yeah, Smokey he might be the personified a Christian that I know.
Really?
He just loves every man and woman. He loves everybody. Smokey.
His songs just came out in that, certainly.
Pardon me?
It came out in his songs.
Oh yeah, he's written over 5. As we speak right now, he's
wrote
getting
My
a check.
Girl.
Yeah, he's written about 5,000 songs. He's just the nicest. Every year I would run a marathon for multiple sclerosis in Chicago. Yeah, my sister Darlene had MS, and so I used to call it 26 miles for Darlene. And people would pledge money for every mile I run. And I'd bring in all kinds of celebrities to run with me: Frankie Avalon, those guys, Frankie Valli, Tony Danza, Eddie Marinara. All my Goombas. And the Cubs and the Bears would come, Jimmy McMahon and those guys.
I love McMahon.
Yeah, he's a great guy. But every year I'd run 26 miles, and the celebrities would run like a block or 2 with me. Frankie Avalon ran several miles with me. Smokey Robinson's the only one who ran all 26 miles with me.
Really?
Yeah, he ran all 26 miles with me. And one year he ran 20 miles in the heat. And
Did he have the Miracles behind him?
No, he didn't. No, he just is. He's a friend, and I always say.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he's a friend.
He was a predecessor. The Beatles got a lot off of those guys. and he was one of them.
Yeah.
And they make no pretense about
No.
it.
Yeah, Smokey was, to me, he was Motown. He was Motown. I mean, I know the OJs and the Temps. He wrote songs for them, too.
But yeah, well, I mean,
You
My
know.
Girl's one of the biggest soul hits ever.
Yeah.
And he wrote that.
And he wrote that, yeah.
I think I heard him sing it goofing around one time.
Oh, he'll sing it in his nightclub act now. But,
Yeah.
but you know, I've been in the car with him. We're going to play golf. And there'll be a song on the radio, and I'll be humming it, and, you know, and some other artist. And I'll say, we like the song. He say, oh, you like that? And never say a word. And I find out later on he wrote the song.
Yeah.
But he's not
I
the
really
kind of
like
guy.
it.
Now, if I wrote a song and you were humming my song, I'd say, hey, Dom,
Oh, I
you
like
know,
it.
you know, wrote that song? I wrote that song. But going back to your original question, I'm appearing with Smokey, and Sinatra's appearing next door at Harrah's. I'm at Caesars,
This was in Vegas?
Lake Tahoe.
Lake Tahoe.
So I had worked Harrah's many years with Sammy Davis, and so I knew all the people there. So one night when I came off stage, I didn't even change out of my stage clothes. I ran outside the door over Harrah's so that I could, it was next door, and I want to see Frank. I love the way Sinatra walked on stage. He created more excitement walking to the microphone
Yeah.
than most people did with their whole act.
Very charismatic.
So I'm running into the showroom, and the vice president of Harrah's Hotel, a guy named Holmes Hendrickson, saw me, and he's talking to a big heavyset guy with a cigar, a guy named Mickey Rudin. And I didn't know who he was, but he said, Tommy, come here. And I reluctantly went over there. And the vice president said, Tommy, this is Mickey Rudin. He said, Mickey, this is Tom Dreesen. He said, I think Tom would make a great opening act for Frank. And the lawyer went, like he had heard this many times before.
Yeah, many times.
He said, and he winked at the vice president, but I caught the wink. He said, hey, kid, if I gave you a week with Frank, would you want more than 50,000? I said, Mr. Rudin, put it this way. If you gave me a week with Frank, would you want more than 50,000? He said, I like this kid. And he started laughing. A week later, they call me, would you like to do a gig with Frank at the Golden Nugget in Atlantic City? And I thought, yeah, what I'll do
What
is...
a great room. I love that room.
A good room, wasn't it? A good
Yeah.
room for comedians. But I said, yeah, I figured, well, I'll try to get my picture taken with him. I'll hang it in every bar in Chicago, and that's it. But the second night we went out to, we performed, his wife, Barbara, and he invited me to dinner. And we're in the middle of dinner, I can remember like it was yesterday, he set his knife and his fork down, and he said to me, I like your material and I like your style. I'd like you to do a few other dates with me if you're interested. And I didn't say, let me check my calendar. I said, oh, yeah. And it turned into almost 14 years and 45, 50 cities a year. And
Wow.
the best of friendship.
But you know what's great? You maintain your own career, too. You know what I mean? The whole time, you always maintain your own separate thing, and your celebrity golf thing and your other stuff, your stand-up. I mean, for somebody who, you know, like I saw my friend Dennis Blair, he was so immersed in George Carlin and working with George that when George stopped touring and when George wanted another opening act, he was really having trouble, you know?
Well, I did over 40 Tonight shows before I ever met Frank Sinatra.
Oh, so, yeah.
I'd already had something going.
You were
and I do a lot
established.
of corporate dates too. I you know, and I had toured with Smokey and Sammy and headlined my own little gigs. But then corporate dates too. I did a lot of corporate dates because I could work clean for an hour. It's hard.
I know.
It was hard for corporate America in those days to find a comedian that could work clean. You know.
I can't even be clean in my regular life for an hour.
Yeah, when you're talking to yourself in the mirror, it's hard to be clean, isn't it?
But I mean, I noticed, like, even in this, I've said fuck 10 times, and you don't say it.
Well, you know, but you know me. I'm a street kid. I don't have a degree from academia, but I got a doctorate from the streets. I can talk like that.
Oh, I know.
I can do a stag with anybody. However, it was so easy. See, the problem with the word fuck, it's a noun, it's a pronoun, it's an adjective, it's an adverb. When you can't think of anything creative to say, you go there. If the punchline is, you know, and that's why he was so fast. If that's the punchline, and you can't do it, and that's why he was so fucking fast.
Yeah.
So you get lazy,
Oh,
and
sorry.
you know, oh, your phone's ringing. It's a dog barking, so it's.
My family doctor. Can I tell him my... Hey, Doc. Doc. Yes, it's Mr. Irrera. I'm on stage with Tom Dreesen, terrific comedian friend of mine. We're doing a podcast. So I just saw it was you, so I wanted to pick up. Can I call you back? Oh, yeah, nothing got shaken. Yeah, all my bottles of booze were up, waiting for me. Thanks, Doc. I appreciate it.
We'll be right back with you.
That's my doctor, Castiglione.
From South Philly?
It's so funny because I have a doctor out here and I love the guy, but this guy, he's like almost like a father to me.
And he's from South Philly?
Yeah, and
Oh,
you know,
really?
he's calling up to see if the place was okay with the earthquake.
Oh, that's funny.
They're more panicked out there about these earthquakes than we are.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
You know, because it's earthquake.
Yeah.
It's like the end of the world. But I mean, I don't want to jinx it, but I've never had a bad earthquake. Have you?
Oh yeah, 1994, the Northridge earthquake. I felt
Oh,
like it was
that one I wasn't here
I thought
for.
it was underneath my building. My condominium was shattered. I had to move out for 9 months.
No shit.
Television came out of the walls. I'm in bed with this. You'll love this. I used to date this young girl, and we were laying in bed, and she would always sleep with earplugs because I would watch TV at night. Right now, she falls asleep, and all of a sudden. At 4:30 in the morning, the bed goes up, the stuff flying off the wall, television, and I start screaming, "It's the big one! It's the big one!" And I think she misunderstood me and thought it was going to be something else, But it's a big. I really thought it was the end.
Really? Wow.
And I mean now.
Oh, you were in Northridge.
No, I was in Sherman Oaks.
Oh, but it was.
But the Northridge is not that far from us.
Yeah.
But I felt like the fault was our building was. Everybody had to move out. They had to gut our whole building.
You're lucky it didn't cave in on you.
That's the other fear. Meanwhile,
that's the biggest
she's
fear.
laying on the floor. She passed out. I thought she got hit with something. I thought she was out
Passed
cold.
out of fear?
Out of fear. Out of fear, she fainted. Now there's no lights. I finally find a flashlight. Glasses everywhere. All the pictures off the wall and everything. And I'm trying to cover my feet. Now I'm gonna try to carry her out. And the door's jammed. The bedroom door is jammed because of the earthquake. I can't get out. And finally she came to. It was really a nightmare to get her out of. So the last earthquake a couple of weeks ago that happened, or a week ago, when I was sleeping, it was 6:30 in the morning this time, and it's that rumbling. I thought, oh no, here we go again. It's pretty frightening.
I was in Cleveland, and I saw it was like -7. I thought, oh man, I can't wait to get home. And then I see this epicenter thing where they show those circles.
Yeah.
And I went, oh fuck, this is bad.
Well, the problem with an earthquake is your instinct is the building's shaking. We got to get out of here. It isn't any better out there. What you're supposed to do is find cover, find shelter, whatever it is. And you don't think that way. Your body is fight or flight. This building's shaking. You and I are going to head for that door.
I went in the tub. Oh, that's tornadoes. I took a bath during the earthquake.
Yeah.
So I just want to ask you more about Sinatra in the sense that, like on the road, did you play golf with him and all that stuff?
He quit playing golf about the time I started. A couple of times I went out on the golf course with him, but Frank couldn't do anything that he couldn't do perfect. He just wasn't. Now your phone's ringing again.
Sorry.
Well,
I turned it off.
You don't even know. That would be funny if you went like this. You'd have said to your phone's ringing and it's your doctor, and you'd say, "Tom, excuse me." She'd have been, "Yeah, Doc, listen, I'm interviewing Tom. 2 weeks."
What do you mean I got 2 weeks?
I just read your
But I got
results.
tickets for Les Miserables in a month.
Working with Frank, I played golf. I mean, I was a pallbearer at his funeral. I spoke at his funeral because I loved him. I really did. We developed such a great friendship. He was almost in a lot of ways like a father to me, like the father I never had. And
that's cool.
And he was. He would give me advice. He'd counsel me when I was going through my divorce. He said to me, "I can't give you any advice on marriage, but I can give you some advice on divorce." He said, "Stay friends with her. Not for you, not for her, but for the kids. Try to stay friends with her if you can."
It's important.
As he did with all of his exes. He was very, very close to all of it. And they were at his funeral, other than Ava, who had passed away before him. But
I remember him walking through. We were in Reno. They walked through one of the casinos, and it was like the president.
Yeah.
With the guys, coming a couple steps before him, and it's pretty cool.
I've been in rooms with him. I mean, in the years I toured with him, where there would be like 1,000 people. It'd be a huge event. And Frank would walk in and he'd sit there and the whole room would buzz. I mean, there would be senators, there would be heads of corporations, there'd be major movie stars. But sooner or later, they all gravitated to him. They all came to be around. They wanted to be him by around.
I felt
him.
Kennedy really left him hanging high and dry.
Yeah. I was in the movie Rat Pack, and I was a consultant on the film Rat Pack. Ray Liotta played Frank, and he hung out with me for like a month trying to talk about how did Frank do this and how did Frank do that. And
Ray's a good guy, huh?
Yeah, Ray's a good guy. Joe Mantegna played Dean,
Joe.
and then Don Cheadle played Sammy. And I coached them on the comedy bits that they did. And the movie opens with me on stage, But I forgot what the question was. We're talking about Frank.
No, you were saying Ray Liotta, that you were going back to the Rat Pack, but I don't know.
Anyhow, the complex. Frank Sinatra was a complex human being. He wasn't the, he wasn't this easygoing guy that sometimes he appeared on stage. He had some dark sides to him. But I just
They all do,
yeah. I mean, like I say, he there were times he was
except
like
for Smokey.
there were times he was like a father to me. There were times he was like a buddy to me. But we later developed this great relationship where
I know. I remember you were telling. I remember when he was alive, and you telling me you guys were tight. I just assumed that because I know you play golf so much, which is very odd, by the way, for a kid who grew up where you did to become an avid golfer.
I caddied though. See, as a boy, I caddied.
So that's what did
See,
it.
I caddied. I caddied to help feed my brothers and sisters. I shined shoes in taverns from the time I was 8 years old till I was 12. I set pins in bowling alleys in the wintertime, and I caddied. I carried 2 bags a day, and I had a newspaper route. I used to, have a newspaper route to help feed my brothers and sisters. I don't regret any of that, but caddying took me to another world. That world there, I had never seen that world.
Yeah, of course.
We
didn't have golf in my neighborhood. Tennis, golf, none of that.
Yeah. I mean, it was there, but rich kids did that stuff. See, I never.
Were you a White Sox fan?
No, Cub fan, and I grew up on the South Side too. But my
that's why I thought the South Side's the White Sox, right?
It's White Sox. Yeah, in fact, the White Sox fans. By the time my whole neighborhood was all White Sox fans. By the time I was 8 years old, I could take a punch. 'Cause they hated Cub fans.
What made you be a Cub fan?
Well, because my grandfather.
Because they were due.
And my dad would listen to it on the radio, and I would listen to them on the radio as a little boy, and I started rooting for the Cubs, and I started knowing their names. And then one time when I was a little boy, the altar boys, I was an altar boy, the altar boys got to go down to Wrigley Field and see the Cubs play, and then I just was hooked,
Yeah.
And to this day, I mean, the Cubs let me be bat boy, for years. When Jimmy Fry was manager, I'd go in and I'd appear at Zanies, and then I'd be bat boy for the Cubs, and all the players and their wives would come to the club. And then when Harry Carey had a stroke, the announcer, I got to announce a Cub game.
He came back after that for a while, right?
Yeah, he came back after that. Every year I sing "Take Me Out to the Ball Game" at Wrigley.
Oh yeah.
Every year, it's my 14th year. Joe Mantegna and I, every year they let celebrities sing "Take Me Out to the Ball Game." So Joe Mantegna and I have done it 14
Is he from
years
Chicago
now.
too?
He's Chicago boy, yeah. Chicago boy, tough area. He grew up in Cicero, real tough area. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. The connection you have with sports. I mean, you could almost make a living with the golf things, can you?
Well, you can, because here's the interesting thing for
But
comedians.
you got to be a good golfer. You must be.
But for comedians to know this though too, whenever I go to a golf tournament and they'll say, "Would you get up and do 5-10 minutes?" I say, "Sure." I get up and do 5-10 minutes. In that audience are Fortune 500 companies. That's who hardly ever do you come. There are many times, but a lot of times I've come off stage at a golf tournament and 2 or 3 guys come up with the cards. I'm with Allstate. I'm with AT&T. We have our awards banquet. Could you do it? Allstate saw me at.
These are our money gigs we're talking about. I mean,
corporate gigs.
Casinos and corporate pay the most. Comedy clubs are the most fun, but they can't afford to pay as much because it's only 250 people.
Yeah.
Talking about a billion-dollar corporation. What's 20,000 to them or whatever?
20. Allstate hired me twice. Once to open for Elton John and once to open for Bon Jovi. And Bon Jovi and Elton John both got $1 million. Yeah. They didn't pay me $1 million, but that's corporate America.
I don't get half that for my gigs.
The wonderful thing about corporate America, you have to worry about, are there any people out there? Are we drawing? You go there, you stay in the hotel. Sometimes they send a private jet for you. The
only thing I worry about is offending the president's wife.
Yeah, which
I had the mic turned off on me because of that. And we were so happy because the Yankees were playing in the World Series, and in the limo we had TV. So the agent, was so happy that I got thrown off stage. We're in Orange County. He goes, "Let's get out of here. We got the money. Fuck it."
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
I think I told you. I don't know if I told you this story. One year I did for Motorola. They sponsored the Western Open golf tournament, and they hired me. And this was years ago. And I can tell you, but at that time I was getting $15,000 first-class airfare and lodging for a corporate date. It was years ago. And when I finished the show, I came out, and the guy walking me to the limo, his name was Wiseapple was his name. He was the head of the Motorola. He said, "Wow, you're really funny, and you saved us $235,000." I said,
Wow.
What? He said, yeah, last year we had a comedian, we had to pay him $250,000, and, you only got to charge us $50. I said, really? He said, yeah, Jerry Seinfeld. Seinfeld was there the year before. Did the same amount of time as me, 45 minutes, but he got $235,000
You know what?
more
If
than
you're
me.
going to pay Jerry $255,000, then Jerry deserves the money because.
Oh, sure. By the way, he probably gets more than that now, but that was when his show was
could
just.
be worth that?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like he does any. He's a great comedian, but there's a lot of them. There's like maybe 30 guys on his level, 50 guys, but I mean, that kind of money. Let it be on your head.
Well, it isn't who's the funniest or the funnier. That doesn't exist. It's who's the hottest, and who has that kind of appeal. Jerry had the hottest show television probably has ever known.
Yeah.
He deserved whatever he got.
Yeah.
I worked with Frank Sinatra when Frank was only getting $250,000 for one nighter at one time.
Isn't it funny to say only?
Yeah, only, yeah. But another time, I have to tell you a great story. The guy who owns the American Insurance Company out of Cincinnati, his name was Carl Lindner. And he wanted Frank to come and appear in his backyard for his 65th birthday. And Frank had just got back from Ireland, and we were sitting in the suite in Waldorf Astoria, and the agent came in, the lawyer, and he said, this guy Carl Lindner wants to hire you on such and such a date, blah, blah, blah. And Frank said, I can't. That morning we're arriving from somewhere, and it was in Cincinnati at night. And so he went back and turned the gig down. Well, the guy thought it was $250,000. The guy thought that wasn't enough. He said, tell him I'll double it. I'll send a private jet for the orchestra, for the band, and I'll send a private jet for him. And Frank, he came back and he said, he's done. Frank said, tell him he's got him a singer. So I went with him on a gig. And the guy wrote a check out that night for $500,000, handed it to Frank. And it was like he was at the supermarket. He wrote a check.
Sorry, I need a cashier's check.
Yeah, Carl and Edith Lindner. I will never forget that name,
Wow.
It's 500. When you think about the times that we would have been so happy to get $1. When we started out in comedy, and you touched on it earlier about the strike, comedians didn't get any money at all. None. We worked for free in all these comedy clubs. There would be lines around the block at the comedy store.
They were making everything.
And they made all the money, and they didn't
Bud
pay.
would say? It's a gymnasium.
Well, Mitzi called it. Mitzi had owned the comedy store. She said it's a school. You're learning.
Yeah.
It's a school.
Learning how to get screwed out of money.
Yeah, and
Now Mitzi pays the most.
Well, now she does. No, she doesn't. Jamie Masada pays more than.
No, Mitzi does on the Saturday night main room.
Oh, in the main room. Yeah. Well, by the way, that's how the strike all began. Because
Jamie pays well too. This is Jamie's stage I'm talking from. I love Jamie.
But what do they pay when you work the original room at the comedy?
it's
$12.50 or something like that.
Something like that.
But we went on strike in 1979 for $25 a set. I would have taken $5 a set. I was working Vegas, Tahoe, Reno, Atlantic City. I was making six figures. I was doing great. I came back to try out some new material at the Comedy Store, and she put us in the main room that night. The main room had 400 and something seats. How many seats does it have?
400.
400 seats.
Yeah.
Rodney used to go in there and get the door. Jackie Mason would go in and get the door.
Right.
So these, they'd get the door. Well, one night when I came in off the road, it's in a book, by the way, called "I'm Dying Up Here" by William Needlesheater. It's one. The book,
I read it.
Yeah, Jim Carrey just optioned it to start doing a series, but nonetheless,
series?
Yeah, he's going to do the dark side of comedy. It's not going to be anything at all about
Series
the strike.
or a movie? Series?
No, a series.
Wow, that's. I don't know if that could carry.
Well, it's interesting what they're planning on doing. I'll tell you about it in a while, but nonetheless. So when I came back to try out some new material, I'm working in Vegas and everything. They said, "You're in the main room." I said, "In the main room." I went in there, and here was the 5 acts on the bill: Tom Dreesen, Elaine Boozler, Jay Leno, Robin Williams, and David Letterman. Now they were new at the time.
So David must have been the MC, huh?
Exactly. and I thought, wow. Now the place was packed, and when we got done, we went over to Cantor's to have something to eat, and Jay Leno said, "This is bullshit." He said, "Jesus, bullshit." He said, "We packed that room. Maybe it took 5 of us, but we packed that room. We're not getting anything. She pays the other guys. They get the door." So let's talk. All the comedians get together for a meeting and blah, blah. And I went and I sat and listened, and they're all talking at the same time. To be in a room full of comedians is like being in a room full of monkeys. I mean, they're all talking at the same time. Nobody's making any sense. And Gallagher's saying, "Let's burn the place down. Let's hang her,"
Let's mallet it.
Yeah, right. But so finally, everybody was talking at the same time. I went to the second meeting, and they were doing it again. And I used to be in the JCs, a civic group. I knew how to conduct a meeting. I knew Robert's Rules of Order. So I got up, and I finally calmed everybody down. I said, "Look, I'm going to chair the meeting." and we're gonna have order here now. And so we said, all right, hold on, Gallagher, hold on. Jay, finish your story, finish your point. Okay, now we put it in a form of a motion, and I started organizing them. Then we had committees and subcommittees, and before you know it, we were a force to be reckoned with. These kids were smart. My era, we came out of ghettos. I'm a high school dropout. I went to junior college nights after the service and stuff and studied political science. But these kids were coming out of universities and they were bright. So all of a sudden we put together a real strong force. And I had a great relationship with Mitzi and I liked her a lot. I thought I could go talk her into this. I said, Mitzi, look, you pay the waiters, you pay the waitresses, you pay the bartenders, you pay the guys who clean the toilets. How about paying the comedian? No, they don't deserve to be paid. No, this is a college. They're learning their craft. I said, Mitzi, you pay, but at least give them, one night I went
you get paid in college, you get scholarships.
Yeah, but one night I jumped up in bed and my ex-wife said, what's that? I said, I got it. Why didn't I think of this? I sat in Mitzi's office. I waited there. She came in. It was 10 o'clock in the morning. She came in. I said, Mitzi, I got it. You're charging $4.50 at the door. Charge $5.50. Let the comics have that $1. If 100 people come in, they share $100. If 200 people come in, they share $200. She said, no, they don't deserve to be paid. It's not. Now, when I walked outside, I was numb because I thought it was about money. I thought it was about money.
About power?
It was about control. It was about control, and that was the end of that, And so it lasted 8 weeks. 19 people crossed the picket line, 18 guys and one girl.
Do you talk to those people now?
A couple of them have come up and talked to me, and I do. The rest of them I don't go out of my way to, but because I felt if they would have.
Mike Binder was one, right?
Yeah, but he's the one I talked to because he came to me.
He was a young guy too.
And he's young, and he apologized. He said I was wrong, and he said I would like to ask you, and I did. I hugged him, and I liked Mike. But if they would have stayed with us, it would have lasted 24 hours. But it lasted 8 weeks, and later a guy committed suicide. And
I remember the
Steve
guy.
Lebetkin, and it broke my heart.
Jumped up the Hyatt, tried to hit the comedy store and missed.
Yeah,
he was committing suicide and he missed. It's kind of dark, funny.
Well, what's dark about it is that he wrote a suicide note was, my name is Steve Lebetkin. I used to work at the Comedy Store. That was his suicide note. A year later after his death, on the anniversary of his death for 2 years in a row, somebody would go, they thought it was ex-girlfriend. They would put a dummy laying on the same spot he landed with a sign around his neck that said, my name is Steve Lebetkin. I used to work at the Comedy Store. And they did that 2 years in a row.
You knew him?
Oh, I knew him real well. And my heart ached because it's a long story, but when the strike was over and we had won and they were going to pay us now, I said farewell. I had a final meeting, farewell to all the comics, good luck to you.
Did Bud pay as soon as she paid?
But here's what happened. Bud wasn't paying, but when the strike was going down, somebody threw a Molotov cocktail on the roof of the Improv and tried to burn it down. I know who did it. Everybody in town knows who did it. And it was a couple of the loyalists from the Comedy Store. I knew who did it, but but the point is no one could prove it. But
I'm going to ask you off the air.
Okay, but here's what happened. She was having a meeting, and she said the comics are talking about going on strike. One of the comics in the back of the room, who was one of these guys, said the comics won't go on strike. They need a place to work. And she said, well, they may work at the Improv. And the other guy said, what if there was no Improv? And a couple days later,
what if there was?
Later, they threw a Molotov cocktail.
Guys and dolls.
Now it burned down the back of the Improv, but the front was still open. So Bud Friedman said to us before we went on strike, he said, if you strike me now, I'm ruined. I'll never be able to rebuild my place. I said, Bud, we don't want to strike anybody. We just want to ask, will you pay? I said, Bud, if we work your place till you get it rebuilt, will you sign a waiver, a little thing, that when the strike is over, you'll negotiate with us? He said, absolutely, and he signed it. So when we were walking the picket line, we would send people over to the Improv, and us comics would go over there and work. And when Bud rebuilt the place, he sat down and we negotiated payment. Do
you work at either one of those clubs now?
No, I haven't ever gone back to the Comedy Store ever. And I'll tell you why. Because when I had this final meeting with the comics, and I said to them, "You're on your own now. I got to go back to work." I was touring with Sammy and all those things.
What time is it? Because this is too much of a story for one show.
I don't know. We got a couple more minutes.
No, we got. Yeah, I think we need another show out of this though.
Okay, but I'll close with this thing. Here's why I never went back to the Comedy Store. When I said that day, I'm on my way. I'm going. You form your own committees, and they did. as I left, this guy, Steve Lebeckin, came up to me. George Miller was talking to me. I had my ex-wife with me. I had to go to a meeting with George Slaughter. He wanted me to host a show called Real People. And I was in a hurry, and I said...
I remember that.
Yeah, I said, I'm in a hurry. And Lebeckin said, please, Tommy, please don't leave the group. If you leave the group, and you bigger name guys, Letterman and Leno leave the group, they'll retaliate. I said, no, it's in the contract. Anybody who walked the picket line, you can't retaliate. We put it in the contract. He said, but Tommy, I've called in 2 weeks in a row now, and I won't get times. I said, Steve, she's going to put you on. He said, but I...
Was he any good?
He was good. He was learning like every other guy, but he was good. But I said to him, Steve, finally my wife said, you got to go. I said, Steve, I won't go back till you go back. That's my word to you. I will not go back till you go back. I promise. He said, okay. Now I go, I'm on the road, I'm in Tahoe, I get a call from Jay Leno 5 minutes before I go on stage.
Aye.
Steve Lebeckin jumped off the top of the Hyatt House, and I just never went back to the Comedy Store. I just thought it was so stupid. This whole thing was stupid. I mean, you could have paid him $1, it was $5 a set, and it would have all been over with early. It would have been over with,
See, I got here way past that, but I remember I was in an improv group in New York, and they showed me, and I was planning on coming out here. They showed me what happened. I go, wow, stand-up's a tougher business than I thought. Guy committed suicide over not getting spots. But we didn't know much about the strike from on the East Coast.
Thus the title, I'm Dying Up Here, is a double entendre.
Yeah.
But, by the way, after we won here in New York, the comics never walked the picket line. They started getting paid. Silver Friedman started paying the comedians.
Yeah. And we used to get like $4.
Whatever it was gas money or go get a sandwich.
Well, it was for a cab, but you couldn't take a cab for $4, so you had to take a bus.
Yeah. But
I always tip the bus driver.
I remember a comedian came up to me years later, and he says, "Hey, somebody told me you guys used to work for free." This kid was from Baltimore. Somebody told me you guys used to work for free. Is that right? I said, "Yeah, that's right." He said, "First time I went on stage, I got paid." I said, "Congratulations."
Yeah, it's because guys like you.
Congratulations of it, but. That's why you say that I ever talked to the comics who crossed the picket line for a long time.
So who crossed the picket line? Like
there was 18 guys.
Altman?
In one go. Yeah. Who?
Argus?
No. Argus, I love to this day. Argus Hamilton.
Yeah.
He was dating Mitzi.
Right.
And we all knew. And at that time he wasn't dating Mitzi. I think Steve Landesberg was. But we knew. And Argus was a gentleman. He still is one of my dear friends. He'd always was respectful to us. But we understood. But if they would have stayed with us, it would have been over in 24 hours. So I had a tough time.
When I got out here, Tom, I was so far over, but there was a grudge match between the two of them, and I wasn't going to get into it. I was already developed. I started at the Improv and the comic strip in New York, and they tried to get me to pick a place. So what I did, I don't know if I told you this last time, but when I got the Tonight Show, my credit was Dom started out at the Improv in New York. You could see him here at the Comedy Store. So I'm probably the only one that ever put the Improv and Comedy Store in their credits.
Absolutely,
in their intro. And he said you could see him at the main room this Saturday night at the Comedy Store. So she's thrilled with it. They're pissed off, Mark and Bud. Mm-hmm. Mark leaves me a scathing message. Me and him are friends now. Mm-hmm. Him and I are friends. And Bud wants to talk to me. Talk about an easy way to shut Bud up. I go, Bud, Missy's supporting me. I did her Hawaii room, Vegas, San Diego, here. I said, if you are willing, I knew I was calling his bluff. Yeah. I said, if you're willing to pay me what she pays me a week, I'll stop working there. Mm. You know what he does?
I was into that.
Huh? Puts his arm around me, he goes, Dom, we always forgive around here.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. Part of our negotiation was that main room. When comics worked in the main room, then but we got half the door. That was part of it when we won the strike. When it was over with, and we won. Again, it just was so silly that it even went on as long as it did. It could have been over in 24 hours.
Yeah, it's a shame. A lot of bad blood, huh?
A lot of bad blood, and for years, comics would not talk to one another.
Yeah, I was lucky because I came out and I first passed in '85. Then I really moved out here in '87, but it was all gone by.
Oh, that was all way past. Yeah.
What was this? '78?
78, 79. Yeah, I think it was 79 March. 79,
yeah, I wasn't.
I like I say, I was working Vegas, Tahoe, Reno, Atlantic City. I'm touring with Sammy Davis. I no more needed to walk a picket line for 8 weeks. But in principle, it was right. These are my fellow comedians. These are all the guys and girls that I started out with, and it wasn't fair. So I really agonized that I want to get this involved, and it hurt me in the business because I became. They voted. The committee voted that when we go on strike, ABC, NBC, CBS, CNN, all the people were there. All the cable, everybody was there with cameras. They said, we don't want to have a convoluted message, so only one person can speak. And they voted this. We'll let Tom Dreesen be all the comics voted. So the camera crew had to come to one voice, me. All of a sudden, I'm like Jimmy Hoffa now.
Yeah, right.
And
you didn't even want that spot.
No, not being part Italian. A guy tried to imply one time, you're from Chicago, and you're Italian, aren't you? Yeah, he said, were you ever, you know anything about the Teamsters? Well, I was in the Teamsters. I loaded trucks.
We're in the Teamsters now. Yeah. The SAG's Teamsters.
But, well, at that time,
AFL-CIO.
Yeah, but see, we weren't part of that. They wouldn't. That's another story. We had to go speak before SAG and everything. But they tried to imply that maybe I had some connections because I'm Italian and because I was a Teamster at one time. Anyhow, it got so ugly, and they punched a gay comedian one night. A couple of her loyalists punched one of the gay comics, a guy named Falstaff, gave him a black eye when I wasn't there. Oh. If me or Johnny Witherspoon wasn't there, they would act up. I boxed when I was in the Navy. I'm not a tough guy, but I know how to handle myself. Johnny Witherspoon's a tough
pretty
Detroit
tough
boy.
Guy. Those hands.
Yeah, we made a rule after that one of us had to be there all the time because they wouldn't mess with Spoon, and I wasn't going to let them mess with
Okay, got eat too.
Yeah.
Tom, I'm going to stop now because of the time, but I really want you to come back and finish some of these stories, if you in a few months, if you don't mind.
Anytime. I enjoy this.
I love talking to you. Tom Dreesen, are you any gigs you want to plug?
Well, I'm touring the country with my one-man show, An Evening of Laughter and Memories of Sinatra. And in fact, I'm doing it back in Chicago in April 11th and 12th. But I do that around the country, I don't need anything. You can go to my website, tomdreesen.com.
And how about your Twitter?
It's Tom Dreesen Comic at, I don't even, if you go to my website, you'll find that.
Mine is Dom Irrera, at Dom Irrera.
I think it's Tom Dreesen Comic at, I don't know. But my website is tomdreesen.com.
I need 2 more followers, and I'm not unfollowing anybody. And I'll be in, where am I going to be? I'm going to be at the... in Austin, Texas, they have a comedy festival called Moon Tower. And I'll also be, listen to this, the Sydney Comedy Festival, and then I'm going to Perth, and the Montreal Comedy Festival, and also the Kilkenny Comedy Festival. I am fastidious, my friend.
Do they pay you to do that? I've never been to one of those festivals.
Oh, yeah.
They pay you to do that? Yeah?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And you know what I did with them, because I like them so much, and I'm such a wonderful guy, but... they took a hit. The Celtic Tiger came crashing down. And they used to pay me so well that they took such a hit that they could only pay me a certain amount. Last year, I went over there for my airfare cost more than what I got.
Oh, no.
But I still, I love those people.
Yeah, well, that's good.
But now they're back on their feet.
Good.
That's the Cat Laughs Festival, the first week in June. And thanks, Tom Dreesen.
Always good to see you, my buddy.
Appreciate it.
Okay.
Tom Dreesen, give him a hand. Come on, you bastards. Get off your high horses.
Oh, look, a standing ovation.
No, they're leaving, Tom.